Since the departure of David Moyes and, of course, then bringing in head coach Julian Lopetegui, one question that seems to be sort of hanging around at the moment is the captain's future. Are we going to be getting a new captain? Are we going to be sticking with Kurt Zouma? I've sort of given my opinion on how I feel about Kurt Zouma in terms of a captain. I've never really been sold on him, really. And that's, I really don't ever mean that to be nasty towards him, because it's not that. I just don't see a captain. That's all. I've never really have. And I, for one, have always felt that it would be beneficial for the club to draw a line under that. Now we've got a change of manager or head coach, whatever you want to call it now, and the whole system. It just feels like if you're going to make this wholesale change, just make it a wholesale change. Let's change the captain. That's how I feel. And it does appear that that is going to be the case, because the rumours are, well, sort of rumours, it's now been reported quite in a fair few places now, that Kurt Zouma has been told that he can leave the club. And the club will accept bids for him this summer. Whether that's going to happen, because I'm struggling to see how West Ham offload him. I've got to be honest. I was looking at him now. He's been at the club 3 years, Kurt Zouma. He turns 30 in October. Now, in fact, he's only 29. It doesn't seem that too bad, but it's the injury side of it. That is the bit with Zouma that is worrying. I mean, let's be honest, right? At times, he looked like he was struggling to bloody walk, let alone run on that pitch. He really looks in a bad way. We inherited him. I wouldn't say inherited him. We bought him from Chelsea. And he'd recovered from that really nasty knee injury. I don't know if you remember when he did it. I think he did it in a Champions League game, from rightly, but he jolted his knee, jumped up to get a ball, and his knee sort of went backwards, but it really jolted badly. It was awful, really awful. He's never looked the same, just never looked the same. West Ham got him, as we do. When a player gets injured, West Ham are in. Do you know what I mean? We are there. He is the bloke for us. And I felt that's what happened with Zouma, really. We got a decent deal on him, really. And I'm really not knocking Zouma here, because I keep saying this. Got to feel like I've got to put a disclaimer up when I talk about Kurt Zouma. I'm not knocking him for being a bad captain, right? I just don't think he's a bad captain. But I'm also not knocking the fact he's a bad player, because he's not a bad player. Let's get it right. There has been times over his 3 years at West Ham, he's been our best. He's been one of the most reliable. Do you know what I mean? He has been a very, very good player. He's a quality defender. Absolutely no denying it. But he's on a high wage. He's on a big wage at West Ham, Zouma. And the fact he's now turning 30 this year, and the fact his injuries are horrendous, I do struggle to see how West Ham offload him. I really do. I'm not sure who's going to come along and be able to pick up that wage, and who would want to, at stage, because his injury record isn't good. I mean, although his recovery's not been bad, I've always found that he recovers pretty quick when he gets his injuries, but it does feel like he's always got a nasty injury waiting. Do you know what I mean? And when you think of Kurt Zouma, you don't think of a player that's going to be playing 38 games for you next season. You just don't. You think he's going to be playing 25 at best. Do you know what I mean? That is the best you're probably going to get out of him. But it appears now the club, anyway, I've decided to make the change. Like I've said, like I think was the right thing to do. They want to bring in a new captain. And when I say bring in a new captain, they want to have a new captain in the club. So not necessarily bringing one in. We'll talk about that in a second. But in terms of let's talk about the player quickly. So, I mean, obviously, as I said, his captain's been questionable. And also, of course, we've had this whole cat incident, which the club stood by him. Do you know what I mean? Really did. I mean, they did. And I think at the time, if you think of it, we were under immense pressure. It was big news, wasn't it? It was all over the press. It was everywhere. Front page news. And the club stood by him. He played while it was all going on, didn't we? If you remember, I think it was it a Sevilla game he played? It was one of those games. I think it might well have been. And, the best nights. And he came in and played that. I mean, the relationship between West Ham and Kurt Zouma has been a positive one, as far as I've seen. I think that... And he comes across pretty happy at West Ham. Happy Zouma, isn't he? That's his name. It's actually his name, bizarrely. I thought I didn't realise that. I only found out quite recently. I thought someone was joking. But no, that is his middle name. But I do feel that the time has come to make a change. I'm not sold on the idea, essentially, of us getting rid of Zouma completely. I don't think he's got literally nothing to offer, unless, of course, someone can come in and offer the money we need. But that's my point. Who's going to do that? The only clubs I can think of that would possibly take him on now are sort of the clubs that are possibly struggling. Do you know what I mean? Might bring him. Everton, possibly, maybe want to bring him back in. Because thinking about Everton, with the financial issues they've got, they might want to just say, look, because we're not going to make a lot of money out of him. But I do struggle with where we go with him. But yeah, the club apparently have decided now they're going to listen to bids now for Kurt Zouma, which obviously gives now the sort of firming up that West Ham are going to change captain, and right and all. In terms of Zouma's replacement, though, before we talk about captaincy, Max Kilman is seen as his the sort of number one target. I understand it to be his replacement. He's turned 27. He turned 27 recently, not too long ago. He's in the peak of his career. Do you know what I mean? 27 that's the perfect age. He's got a decent injury record. He's done well for Wolves. I've been impressed with him, actually, when I watched him, especially as he played against West Ham. I think he looks decent. I mean, he's a good player. And we know that there's been that constant connection with West Ham and Kilman. It's been going on for a little while, but now it's sort of like it's further reinforced. Now we've got Lopetegui in charge, worked together at Wolves. It just feels like this is probably the time he's going to come in. And we know that this back line needs a lot of work at West Ham. And we have been shocking defensively this season, absolutely shocking. And I mean, I've looked at some of the performances we've had defensively, including Zouma in that this year. It's not been good at all. So it's massively needed. So it does look like, although we looked at Bruno, didn't we? For British show Bruno, which is a deal that looks like it's fallen through, one from Brazil. But I think Max Kilman's going to be the one West Ham are really going to go for as well. 40 million quid though. 40 million quid apparently is the asking price at the moment from Wolves. I think we can negotiate that down. Wolves are desperate for money. In my feeling, I get the feeling. And I hate saying this because it's not what I want in a summer transfer window. I think if we get Kilman, it'll be late. I don't think we'll get him early. I've got this horrible feeling it'll be one of them. But that's where we are. It looks like, so I'll say. So Zouma is going to be on his way out. Kilman's most likely to be the one to come in. I think there's going to be other targets as well. We talked about Greaves of Hull being another target in the previous video. I think he's being earmarked as the sort of next in line after the Bruno deal. So it looks like we're going to have a new centre-back pairing. Naifer Gerd looks like he's going to be going. Atletico Madrid apparently are the front runners for his signature. To be honest with you, I'm quite happy to see a Gerd go now. He is actually, I'll go off on a tangent here, a Gerd is one of my most disappointing players in recent years of West Ham, being a West Ham fan. I don't mean that horribly in terms of like, oh, he's been awful. He hasn't been awful, but I've been really disappointed. Like, I was expecting so much more out of him. I really felt that we were getting a top defender in there. And I think he's shown that he can be. But he's also shown he can be quite incompetent as well. Not very reliable at times. And I'm not been impressed with his attitude, which is a real shame because, again, I thought it was different when he came across in early interviews. He came across really well. But these things happen. It looks like we are going to be selling him, and I think we'll probably get a fair bit of money back on him. Hopefully, we can get, I think 30 million quid we outlaid, wasn't it, for a Gerd? So if we can get as close to that as we can, that'd be great. Obviously, that can go towards the sort of Kilman deal and possibly offloading on Zouma as well. But look, it's going to be a lot of change at this club this summer, huge amounts of it. And the fact now that West Ham are talking about getting rid of Zouma, then it sort of confirms the fact that West Ham also are going to be having a new captain for next season. Come on, your irons.